Alrighty guys, welcome. Let's get going on this homework, number 7 to 16 for Algebra 1. This is called Rationalizing the Denominator. So, what do we got to do? Right away, we got to look to see if we can simplify at all. And the answer here is yes, we can definitely simplify right away. Why are we able to simplify this number 7? Well, it's because the square root of 9 is 3. After that, the rationalize the denominator step. We need to multiply the top and bottom by this square root. Whatever that square root is on the bottom, you gotta multiply the top and bottom by it. So you got a square root of 6 over the square root of 6. Just give me 1 second here. I'm trying to move my window around. I can see it better here. Okay, so now what's going to happen here? When you multiply by the square root of 6 over the square root of 6, what we want to do is multiply the top two numbers here. However, this guy is outside of a square root. This guy is under a square root. Because of that, nothing changes. They just straight chilling. Or as somebody else told me today, they're straight vibing. Doing nothing. That's it. They stay exactly the same. So these two guys on the top stay exactly the same. Now on the bottom, what's happened on the bottom here? Well, I have the 2. The 2 just gets copied. So the 2 actually just gets copied. But these guys, the square root of 6 and the square root of 6, whenever you multiply two things that have exactly the same square root, square root of 6 times square root of 6, they become that number without the square root symbol. And that's it. That part. Now we just got to do some more basic simplifying, some more basic 4th grade fraction stuff. We got multiplying 2 times 6, that's 12. And you know what? I'm going to refocus this, see if it goes any better. Hopefully that wasn't too loud in terms of that beep. Okay, that seems to be better. Now, our last step, the 3 and the 12. Both of those numbers can divide by 3, so we reduce. 3 divided by 3 is 1. I don't need to write it. And 12 divided by 3 is 4. I have finished the question. Let's move on to number 8. So number 8, we're going to ask ourselves the same question. Are we able to reduce this at all? And the answer is no. Nothing can be reduced. So instead, we're going to immediately rationalize the denominator. That means getting rid of the square root on the top and the bottom. So we're going to go ahead, multiply by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3. I don't know why I said getting rid of the square root on the top and the bottom. You get rid of square root on bottom only. My bad. So, again, just like that previous question, the top part, we're going to multiply the numbers that are outside the square root, and then separately multiply the numbers that are inside the square root. So you just get a 3, that guy gets copied, and then the square root of 2, square root of 3, that becomes the square root of 6. And on this part here, the square root of 3 and the square root of 3, just like on this question where we have the square root of 6, square root of 6, these guys are exactly the same. When they're exactly the same like that, you simply rewrite it once without the square root. And on this question, the 3's cancel. Bam. Final answer, square root of 6. Let's move on to problem number 9. I'm going to switch colors. I don't really know why I'm going to switch colors, but I'm going to see if this color looks any prettier to me on here. So we're now on problem number 9. So number 9, same concept as that last question. We see that square root of 3 on the bottom. So because we see a square root of 3 on the bottom, we need to multiply the top and the bottom by that square root of 3. And now we're going to do that square root of 5 times the square root of 3. That's going to give us the square root of 15. And then here, it's a lot of the same numbers, so I can get a little confusing. That's okay. We're going to copy this 3 first. We're going to copy. And then this guy here and this guy here combine. They're going to become simply just 3. And then finally multiply them together, and you're all done with the question. 15 divided by 9. Easy peasy. All right, let's go on to number 10. So number 10, we have to see if we can reduce anything right away. And the answer is yes, we can reduce both the top and the bottom. So that square root of 8 right there, that can be rewritten. We can rewrite that square root of 8 as the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. Why square root of 4? Because it's on that list of numbers, the 4, 9, 16. We wrote all those numbers before. In the denominator, we're going to go ahead and, again, rewrite it. We have a square root of 4 times square root of 3. And something cool in this question happens. Normally, you would just write a 2 there and a 2 there, but look at this, square root of 4 over square root of 4. That's just going to, boom, cancel out. Rewrite. Almost identical to last question. Multiply by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3. These two square roots multiply together. When you have these being the same, square root is gone. Write it once. All done. Number 11, last one for this page. Still have the next page to go though. So we always want to check for simplifying, and in this case we can simplify because we know the square root of 4 is 2. Oh, I don't like the pen. My pen's fading on me. I gotta switch back to the other color. That's unfortunate. So that 2 or 3 square root of 5, and now we gotta multiply the top and bottom by that square root of 5. And now these two guys on the top, they are kind of like not like terms, so we cannot multiply them together there. And then this guy underlined. 3 times 5. Final answer, 2 rad 5 over 15. Bada bing, bada boom. Oh, my square root kind of vanished. I'm gonna have it there. All right, next page. The back page. So on the back page, solve each equation by taking square roots. So number 12, this is a softball. When I say softball, it means it's a freebie. You just right away, you have a is the square root of 3, and a is negative square root of 3. Both the positive answer and the negative answer, I took the square root of both sides. Honestly, this is like free points. Let's move on to number 13 instead, because this one's actually slightly more interesting. So on this one, let's think about this over here. I have both the positive and negative answer. On this one, I'm going to write it at the very end. So let's do it on number 13. So square root of both sides. N is the square root of 8. Just like on that previous page with the square root of 8, we're going to rewrite it as the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. And therefore, n is equal to 2 times the square root of 2. Don't forget, n is also equal to, I'll move my paper over, negative 2 square root of 2. You got to have both the positive and negative answer at the end of these questions. Let's move on to number 14. So number 14, we have this bigger number, but it is exactly the same process. We're going to immediately start with n is the square root of 240. Now we got to ask ourselves if we are able to divide by one of these numbers here. And as it turns out, it is divisible by 4. But if you try a larger number instead, it's also divisible by 36. So if you divide it by 36, what will you get? Oh, I'm thinking it's divisible by 36. Hopefully I'm not lying to you. Divide by 4. Yeah, it is divisible by 36. What do you get? Oh my gosh, I'm trying to do some math in my head here and it's not working out for me very good. Oh my gosh, it's embarrassing. It's not 8. It's instead 7, right? No, maybe it's not 36. Maybe I need my calculator. Kind of sad times. I don't have a calculator with me. We're gonna check, see if 24 is divisible by 36. Oh well, I don't have my calculator with me. We're gonna take it the long way home. So doing it the long way instead, we got the square root of 4 times the square root of 60. Oh, it's not divisible by 36, is it? Oh, it's divisible by 16. I see. I'll do it the short way in just a moment. So now you guys know. See, not super math god every time. When it's too late at night, brain doesn't work anymore. So what do we do? So that square root of 4 became 2. That square root of 60 stayed the same, but we're not done because that square root of 60 goes on further. We can rewrite this 2 times, again, another 1. Square root of 15. And then now, square root of 4 is again just a 2. And man, I'm like writing sideways. I'm so sorry about that. I'm going to try to not write sideways anymore. Let's see if I can move my camera to like go with me. I don't know. So for a final answer here, we have n equals 4 square root 15. Do not forget the negative answer. But again, you could have done this faster. If I had my calculator, I would have been able to check right away that instead of doing n equals square root of 240 and then doing the 4, I could have easily done n is the square root of 16. And it turns out that 16 multiplied by 15 is 240. So n is the 4 rad 15 there. You get the same exact result either way. Let's move on to the next guy here. Number 15. So number 15, please, whenever you have these fractions, go to your calculator and do your alpha y equals n business. And if you need to borrow a calculator for these, you gotta do it. You gotta use one in class. You gotta ask for help. Gotta come by at lunch, do it after school, that kind of thing. You can also check them out on that Wolfram Alpha website. Alpha y equals n, the very first step is to reduce. If you do your alpha y equals n, the top and bottom are both divisible by 3, you get 5 divided by 6. Now I can take the square root. This was the big part of today's lesson. When you take the square root on both sides, square root of the entire fraction becomes the square root of the top over the square root of the bottom, and now I have a square root on the bottom and I need to rationalize the denominator. So to rationalize the denominator, same exact thing as that previous page, multiply by square root of 6 over that square root of 6. Finalize our answer, n equals the square root of 30 over 6. Don't forget your negative answer. That would be so silly to do all this work and not get that final answer. One last question to do, number 16. Let's do it. So number 16 here, x squared is 54 over 360. Alpha y equals n, or reduce that fraction. If you do it correctly, it will reduce down to 3 divided by 20. After that, take the square root of the top and the bottom. Now, on the last question, I'm going to slide back over. On the last question, I just did the square root of the whole thing and then went right to here. But you could easily just jump right to this step if you wanted to. That's up to you to jump right to that step. So x is the square root of 3 over square root 20. Now we ask ourselves, we can simplify. The answer is yes. X is the square root of 3 divided by the square root of 4 times the square root of 5. Again, we're checking each one of those. Can we divide by one of those numbers on the list? Square root of 3 over 2 square root 5. Oh, running off the page there. My bad. My bad. Multiply the top and the bottom by that square root of 5. And finally, we get x is square root of 15 divided by 2 times 5. Final answer is square root of 15 over 10. Don't forget, it's also the negative answer. You gotta have both. X is the square root of 15 over 10 and the negative square root of 15 over 10. You have to write them both down. Don't write them both down. It's a disaster. Anyways, guys, that's the whole homework. Good luck. Next video should be posted soon enough. Have a good one.